Okay, welcome back, guys. We are getting to the end of topic 8. So we are now on the problem solving. This is the beginning of lesson 8-9. I'm on page 505. It is the math practices and problem solving, and it's called Make Sense and Persevere. So for the solve and share, the question says, a rectangular dog park was built with the dimensions shown. So it's a 25.5 yard by 8.25 yard field. The fencing that completely surrounds the park costs $12 a yard. So I want you to think about if we're talking about putting in a fence, what would that mean that we would need to figure out? So we know that when we're talking about rectangles and squares and they're asking us questions like this, we're gonna be talking about either area or perimeter. So if I'm putting a fence around the park or around the yard where the dogs are going to be playing, it's going to be perimeter. Remember, we're going around the rim. So the fencing is going to be my perimeter. So I'm just going to put perimeter here so I remember that. But then there's also more to this problem. So it says, each square yard of grass sod that covers the entire park costs $8. So now the sod, that would be the grass part that they're going to be putting in, it's going to cost $8 per square yard. So the difference now is now we're going to cover the entire park and we're going to be covering that inside section of the park. So this time we're not doing perimeter anymore. Now we're doing area. So their question was, what was the total cost for the fencing and the sod? Solve this problem any way you choose. And if you take a look at the little thought bubble on the side that the robot's having there, it says thinking habits. Be a good thinker. These questions can help you. What do I need to find? What do I know? What's my plan for solving the problem? What else can I try if I get stuck? And how can I check that my solution makes sense? So one of the main reasons why people get these wrong, and I think I've been telling you this all year, is a lot of times we jump into the problem when we see numbers, but we don't really think about what the numbers actually mean. So again, I'm listing all of the things that I already know, and I'm gonna try to figure out for myself what I should do with those numbers that I know. So I know, first of all, that my fencing is $12 per yard, and I know I need to find the perimeter. So if I go back up to my park area there, to find perimeter, I know I'm going around the entire length of the park. So I know 2 of the sides right now. I need to know all 4 of the sides. I know it's a rectangle, so I know if this side is 25.5, then that side must also be 25.5. So I can do 25.5 either times 2, or I can do 25.5 plus 25.5. So you can do it either way. Obviously, we are in a multiplication unit, so they kind of are steering you towards the multiplication, but times 2 is fairly easy because we can just double it, obviously. So I know that 25 plus 25 is 50, and I know that a half and a half is 1 whole, so I know it's going to be 51 just for the 2 long sides. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the short sides. So it's going to be 8.25 times 2, or 8.25 plus 8.25. 8 and 8 is 16. 1/4 is 2 quarters, and I know that 2 quarters is the same as 1/2. So I have 16.5 and 51. So those are my 2 parts. So long sides, 25.5 and 25.5 gave me 51. Short sides, 8.25 and 8.25 gave me 16.25. I'm still not done though, because they want the entire perimeter. So I know I need to now add my 51 and my 16.5 my half can just stay as a half. 6 and 1 is 7, and 5 and 1 is 6. So my area is 67.5. I'm still not done though, because they didn't just want me to explain what the area was, I'm sorry, the perimeter was. They also wanted me to say what the cost was going to be for the fence. So I need to now take that 67.5 perimeter, and I need to say it's $12 per yard. This again is in yards. So now I need to actually figure out what the price is going to be. So I'm going to drop down here. We have 67.5, but we have to do it times 12 because it's $12. So that's going to be my new problem. 67.5 times 12 equals X. Now, because I only have one fraction in my problem, my other number doesn't have a fraction attached. Remember, I just need to do my 67 times 12 and then my 1/2 times 12. So I'll do my 67 times 12 on the side. 2 times 7 is 14. Carry the 1. 2 times 6 is 12, and 1 is 13. Put my 0 down. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 6 is 6. So I have a total of 4. 7 plus 3 is 10. 6, 7, 8. So far I have 804. Still not done though, because I still have to do 1/2 times 12. Remember that multiplication sign can also be turned into the word of, so it's half of 12. That you should be able to do mentally. What is half of 12? I know half of 12 is 6. If you had numbers that were maybe a little harder to work with, remember I can put a 1 underneath my 12, and I do 1 times 12 is 12, and 2 times 1 is 2. I get 12 over 2, and then I simplify it down. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So then I'm just taking my two numbers, 6 and 804, and I'm adding them together. I know 4 plus 6 is 10, so get rid of all of this. So if I have 804 plus 6, and I know that's 10, I end up with $810. That's just for the fencing. We're still not done with this problem because they wanted to know the entire amount that this person or this company has to pay. So we took care of the fence portion. We still have to do the sod portion. So the 810, I need to make sure that I keep. So I'm just going to move it over here because we're going to have to use that again later on. So 810 is the total for the fence. And then I'm going to get rid of all of my work so that I have some room to do my sod part with. Okay, so my sod portion is going to be, remember, all of that section that's shaded in green. So the part where this is a dog park, so the part where the dogs are actually going to get to run around on. So I'm doing an area 25.5 and 8.25. This time I'm not adding. This time, remember, I'm going to multiply. So I'm doing the area of that rectangle 25.5 times 8 1/4 or 8 1/4. Remember when we have been doing the last couple of lessons, when I do multiplication where I have mixed number times mixed number, I said you have those two options. You can either turn the mixed number into a straight improper fraction and then multiply across, and you would obviously do that for both of them, or you can do that area model where you have the 4 boxes, because remember, this time you have to multiply 4 times. 25 times 8, 25 times 1/4, 1/2 times 8, and 1/2 times 1/4. I'm going to turn mine both into improper fractions because just talking with everybody, it seemed like most people find that a little bit easier. So 2 times 25, I know, is 50, and 1 is going to give me 51 halves. And then my second fraction is going to be 4 times 8, 32, plus 1, 33 fourths. So now I'm multiplying 51 halves times 33 fourths. So the bottom is just going to be 2 times 4, 8. My 51 times 33 I'll do on the side. So I have 3. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 1 is 3. And 3 times 5 is 15. So I have 3, 8, 6, 1. So it's 1,683 over 8. And when I simplify that down, I'm going to do 1,683 divided by 8. 8 times nothing is 1. 8 times 2 is 16. 0, 8 comes down. 8 times 1 is 8. 0. My 3 comes down. This is the part where you have to make sure you put that 0 there because 8 times nothing is 3. I'm left with 3, and my divisor was 8. So it's 210 and 3/8. 210 and 3/8 is my area of that portion of the rectangle that's going to be covered in sod. Okay, so up until that point, I've just found the area, but remember they still want a dollar amount attached to it. So they're telling me that it's $8 per square yard, and I have 210 and 3/8 yards. So we have a couple more things that we have to do. Let's get rid of all of this extra stuff here. And you can see already that these problems are not going to be just quick one-step problems. You have to really make sure that you're reading and thinking about what they want you to do in each of them. So I'm going to now do 210 and 3/8 times my $8. Okay, so again, if you want to do improper fraction, that's fine. For this one though, I'm just doing my 210 times 8 and my 3/8 times 8. So I'm just going to do mine straight across. So 210 times 8, I get 0, 8, and 16. So far I have 1,680. And then I also need to do my 3/8 times 8. So 3/8 times 8 over 1 is going to be 24. 8 times 1 is 8. And 24/8 is going to give me 3. So I'm going to take that 3, add it over here to the rest of my area. Whoops. So I end up with the sod is going to cost $1,683. Still not done. So we have one more step to do because ultimately, if you go back to the question was, what was the total cost for the fencing and the sod? So that very last thing that I need to do now is I need to take the cost of the fencing, which was $810, the cost of the sod, which was $1,683, and I need to add them together. So I have 3, 8 and 1 is 9, 6 plus 8 is 14, carry the 1 and 2. So my final answer, and I'm going to report that as money, is $2,493 for them to cover this field with sod and to fence it. It's a long process, but like I said, you have to make sure that you are really looking at the problem before you jump in and try to solve the problem. You really have to think, what are the steps that I have to take in order to get to that final thing that they're asking for? You can do it. It just takes a little bit of work. And as you get to higher grades, the process is going to be a little bit longer because there are going to be more steps involved. Okay, we're gonna jump down to the bottom where on the look back, it says before solving the problem, so we already solved it. How do you know that the area of the dog park must be greater than 200 square yards? So when we go back up to the area and we're looking at 25 and a half times 8 and 1/4. Their question was, how do I know that the area is going to be bigger than 200? Well, I know just by looking at it, and actually I shouldn't put an equal sign there. I'm going to put a greater than. I know that this is going to be greater than 200 because if you think about those comparisons that we did in the last lesson, I'm multiplying 25 and some fraction times 8 and some fraction. So if I just focused on the whole numbers, how many yards would I have, or square yards, if I did 25 times 8? So if I did 25 times 4, I know I get 100. If I did 25 times 8, I know I get 200. But I actually know it's going to be bigger because I have more than 25 and I have more than just 8. So because those numbers are both bigger than the numbers that get me exactly 200, I know my answer is going to be slightly larger. Okay, so that is the explanation for the look back, and we're going to move on. You can click on the next video. I'm going to go through the visual learning and the convince me, and then into the guided practice.